On 16 December 1971, a new nation stood free for the first time and joined the other countries of the world as equals. The ashes of war made way for a tumultuous hero's welcome as Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman set foot on a liberated Bangladesh for the first time. As he set about rebuilding his war-torn nation, it was a mere 4 months later that the Republic of Korea extended its hand of friendship and recognition to the new country. In May 1972, a young desk officer at the South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Seoul drafted an instruction to the Korean Consulate General in New Delhi to recognize the newly independent government of Bangladesh. That desk officer was none other than Ban Ki-moon, who would, 35 years later, become the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations.
And I'm very proud to have played a role in this history. It was I who drafted recommendation to the foreign minister and to the president that Korea should establish diplomatic relationship with Bangladesh, newly born, newly independent country. And also my very own fountain pen was used to sign the document. In fact, to this day, I possess that fountain pen and I have held on it too tightly as a very personal souvenir.
On May 12, 1972, the Foreign Minister of Korea, Young Sik Kim, wrote to his Bangladeshi counterpart, Abdus Samad, informing him that his government extends its de jure recognition to the People's Republic of Bangladesh. In December 1973, South Korea established formal diplomatic relations with Bangladesh, and Korea's ambassador to India, Mr. Lo Shin-young, traveled to Bangladesh for the occasion. Accompanying him was Ban Ki-moon, who was now a junior diplomat assigned to the South Korean embassy in New Delhi.
At the time, I accompanied then Ambassador Lo Shin-young to Bangladesh on the important occasion of the establishment of Korea-Bangladesh diplomatic relations. I still vividly remember the signing ceremony which established our two countries' bilateral relations.
Ambassador Lo would subsequently become Foreign Minister of South Korea in 1980 and served as Prime Minister of South Korea from 1985 to 1987. In August 1975, Korean President Park Chung-hee dispatched Special Presidential Envoy Mr. Chung Soy-young, Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, to Dhaka, who praised the leadership of Bangabandhu. In fact, Korea's relationship with Bengal started many decades earlier. It was in 1929 when Rabindranath Tagore, moved by the indignity of the colonial oppression of Korea, wrote his poem, The Lamp of the East. The poem was profoundly inspirational to Koreans, and to this day, Tagore remains a part of the national high school curriculum in the Republic of Korea. What started with a cultural connection of the 1920s grew to the diplomatic ties in the 1970s, and in the decades since has expanded to partnerships in development, manufacturing, business, industry, and much more.
Past 5 decades, we have developed very strong ties and partnership in every field. And first of all, Korea is the 5th largest foreign investor in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the 3rd largest recipient of Korea's official development assistance. And Korea is one of the preferred destinations of Bangladesh's expatriate workers. And also in terms of trade, our bilateral trade volume has reached to the level of $2 billion since several years ago in 2018. So all in all, our two countries are enjoying very close relations and strong ties.
Nowhere has the impact of the cooperation between the two countries been felt more than that of Bangladesh's ready-made garments industry. Today, the RMG industry in Bangladesh is a multi-billion-dollar manufacturing powerhouse, which is the 2nd largest on the planet. It all began when Mr. Nurul Kader, a former civil servant turned businessman, met Kim Woo-chung, the founder and chairman of Korea's Daewoo Corporation. The two struck a deal to collaborate on a 100% export-oriented clothing manufacturing factory in Chittagong, Bangladesh, which Mr. Kader called Desh Garments.
One of the renowned person, his name is Nurul Kader Khan, he started in the name of Desh Garments. But actually, in a formal way, I can say that Desh Garments is the first factory who started this business in a big way. And that time we knew that this profession, this RMG sector, South Korea is the pioneer in this line. The production and the new system of production, Korea started doing this thing.
So one day I heard that Mr. Kim, the president of Daewoo company, is visiting my house and we'll have a meeting with my husband. So, okay. That's the first time I heard the name of Mr. Kim and the Daewoo company. I have no idea about Korean company. So they had a meeting and then they left. After that, whatever my husband and his colleagues or his directors, executive director, they had a meeting and I heard that they are going to visit South Korea. So after South Korea, when they came back, I heard that he is going to start a business with a Korean company, Daewoo, and Mr. Kim and my husband and his associates, that they are going to visit Korea.
Under the terms of the agreement, Daewoo would provide technical skills and knowledge transfer by training Bangladeshi workers and technicians in Korea.
That time, so far I remember, more than 100 executive type people from Desh Garments went to Korea to understand this and for the education, for training, whatever we say. But they went there and they started learning how to do this. And that is the first team who went to Korea for training. In our country, the production system is like the Korean system, it is a line system. So that is the system we follow. Till date we follow this system, line production. Normally some other countries have their own way of producing ready-made garments, but we follow the system. So that is like Korean system.
A total of 133 people were chosen by Desh Garments to go to Korea for training, including 18 women.
The first advertisement for taking the trainees, it was published in a newspaper. After that, they have went into details work of how to take the trainees, how to send them, and how to involve the women, especially the girls in those days. So they went all this process and procedure. One of the girl, she was mentioning that I've chosen from the newspaper. They gave the advertisement in the newspaper, and where they mentioned the salary, the structure, the time, everything in details. It was mentioned in the paper. So one of the girl who went to Korea, she was saying the other day that I was chosen and I gave the written test. Then after written test, I gave viva. Then I was given training, initial training. That's how she was chosen. And her family really supported her to go to Korea. In 77, 78, remember, the women are not going abroad for a job or for a training except high level. So that's how they were chosen, 130, initially 126, and then some were added. So total 133 in the management level also.
One of that first group of Bangladeshis that traveled to Korea for training was Mr. Shamsuddin.
It was 1979. We were that time there was no any industry of ready-made garments. Suddenly we have seen an advertisement that in Korea they will bring some people from Bangladesh. Of course, it is a joint venture project of Daewoo and Desh Garments, and it will be a new technology for Bangladesh to establish ready-made garments factory. Accordingly, I was very excited and I applied for the job in training of garments technology. Accordingly, in 1979 May, we went to Korea, Busan, and it is a Daewoo Industrial Corporation, and we all went in 3 groups to Korea. Gradually, we have gone for 3-month training, theoretical, like a classroom, in a particular textile course. After that, 3 months in practical training. Completing 6 months, the reason is we will back to Bangladesh and we will recruit here local people and we will train them. After coming to Bangladesh, we were working in these garments to establish factory, recruitment of local people and technology transfer, so that people can train properly. At the same time, a lot of other factories started growing and people from these garments, especially from our people, they moved to other garments and set up the project. Like that way, the technology have transferred. That is the most important these garments have made. These people have developed all over the Bangladesh, all the new factories, because that time nobody was well known about the technology. So this technology have transferred from these garments.
It was around this time that Ki Hak Sung, the chairman of Youngwon Corporation, visited Bangladesh for the first time.
I remember it was sometime May of 1979. It was my first visit to the country. I thought there were eagerness to attract some investment, though infrastructure there was, as you may well know, not ready for this kind of industry. But anyway, we have decided to make a small investment, and we started the production already in May of 1 year since then. May of 1980, already this factory in Agrabad, rented factory in Agrabad, started production for Swedish market. In very early 1980s, there was none. No other foreign investor was there. We were lone investor in the country then.
Thus, Korea's Youngwon Corporation became the first foreign investor in Bangladesh's garments industry.
Actually, first 6 months is 1 year or 2 years. We have really sent many Koreans to teach them how to make garments, which was what we have done. But on the other hand, we have invited, I think, nearly 70, 80, or even 100 technical people or supervisors to be trained in Korea. So we have trained them in Korea and sent them back to run the factories there. There are many of them like that. So technical expertise was gained in our main factory in near suburban city of Seoul, which is we call Seongnam. That's why one of our factories is named Seongnam there. Yeah. That is what happened there.
From that beginning, Youngwon's rapid growth would be illustrative to the entire industry's expansion.
The government, I remember, wanted to move all foreign investment into this designated area as which was the export processing zone. So we have decided to move on, and when we started, there was no export processing zone, but in the span of about 5 years, 6 years time, export processing zone just opened, and there were 2 small factories were operating there. They moved in already, and then we were like a third company to move into CE business. Of course, that scale was different. We were much bigger of all there.
I got opportunity to join in Youngwon, and I was the first Bangladeshi employee to work as a senior management level, because Yangwon that time was thinking to do local management system. Gradually we increased the unit, we increased the factory, and finally in Dhaka EPZ 1995 Dhaka EPZ started. Yangwon was the first factory also in Dhaka EPZ to set up their project. As Dhaka factory started, so I was moved from Dhaka to Chittagong to set up this project here. I recruited altogether 6,000 people to work for Yangwon. Altogether, it was total that time around 35,000 people working.
The growth of the industry in these early days was remarkable. According to the World Bank, the RMG industry in 1981 accounted for 0.5% of all Bangladeshi exports, rising rapidly to 28.2% in 1987, just 6 years later. The next innovation in the industry, private EPZs, would soon start, also due to a Bangladesh-Korea collaboration.
I think it was very early part of 1990s, that we thought our production base in EPZ, government EPZ, was not enough. So we wanted to, start investigating how we can expand our production there.
The government of Bangladesh granted Yangwon almost 2,500 acres of barren land in Chattogram to start KEPZ, the Korean EPZ. As a part of the conditions of receiving the land, Yangwon committed to the rehabilitation of the barren land and set aside 52% as an ecological zone. Under their Blue and Green initiative, more than 10 million trees have been planted and over 500 million gallons harvested for man-made lakes, keeping KEPZ a unique eco-industrial zone.
I must say that greening of the zone and make the best ever, first ever kind of very environmental industrial complex. That is very rare, and I'm extremely proud of that, what we have and Bangladesh has achieved in that sense. That is most important ones.
You see, KPZ was the Korean export promotion, KPZ. So that is one of the big establishment, in Bangladesh, one of the biggest private zone. So they are also very successful businessmen, and we really appreciate their support.
More than 4 decades after the garments industry began in Bangladesh with Korean assistance, things have come full circle, with Bangladeshis now in leadership positions in Korean garments operations around the world.
Since we were developing our production in overseas, like in China and Vietnam, and like El Salvador, Mexico, and all these factories, middle management was Bangladeshis. Always with the new countries, we sent the Bangladesh middle management to teach and manage. So our middle management of Bangladesh has contributed a lot to the development of production skills, more modern production skills in China. People will not believe, in China and in Vietnam. So still in Vietnam, our chief of production is Bangladeshi. They have, he is running whole operations there, which is maybe many $100 million operation there.
BUFT, the University of Fashion and Technology of the Bangladesh Garment Manufacturers and Exporters Association, now trains the next generation of skills in the garments industry in Bangladesh.
So one of our university in the name of BGMEA University. buffed fashion and this technology. So we follow the system, and I went to Korea also for an agreement with some Korean university to get education and send our students for fashion and this technology. So few years back, I mean about 4.5 years back, I had an agreement with one university of Korea where we are sending students from our BGM university for further training in fashion and technology. So that is also a good side because that shows that Korea is really well ahead of us in this fashion, technology and these things. So that is also really appreciated.
Korean companies were also at the forefront of introducing compliance with international labor regulations, safety, and other global standards. Today, Korean companies continue to be a major stakeholder in the RMG sector in Bangladesh. Throughout the years, many other Korean companies have made their mark in Bangladesh's RMG industry. These companies continue being an integral part of the industry, providing world-class corporate leadership and being ethical, responsible members of the business and industrial community in Bangladesh. Now more than 85 Korean RMG companies are operating in Bangladesh, employing around 150,000 Bangladeshi workers across the country. South Korea remains the fifth largest foreign direct investor in Bangladesh, totaling some $1.3 billion. Of this, more than $900 million has been invested in the RMG industry alone, by far the largest investment of any country. The Korea-Bangladesh relationship today spans many sectors and industries.
Actually, RMG has been the center of our bilateral business ties. But in recent decades, our two countries have explored in other avenues of collaboration, especially in electronics and also automobiles and infrastructure. Those three areas are the areas where two countries are very closely collaborating in recent several years, in recent decades. And when it comes to the electronics, Samsung established its office in 2009. And it started a partnership with a Bangladesh company and started production of television sets since 2013. And from 2018, it started assembling smartphones in this country. And more than that, Samsung Electronics also established its R&D Research Institute in Dhaka in 2010, more than 10 years ago. And it employs about 500 Bangladesh high-level technicians and software experts, and develop the softwares for using the Samsung gadgets around the world, not just in this country. And in terms of the automobiles, Hyundai Motors started a partnership with a local company. And from next year, 2022, we expect that Hyundai Motors will assemble its automobiles here in Bangladesh. So this is very promising development of our bilateral business ties. And also infrastructure is an area where many Korean companies have big interest. And even from early days of our relations, Korean companies have participated in some infrastructure-related project in this country. But most notable was the Jamuna multi-purpose bridge, which was built in 1998 by Hyundai Construction. And I heard from many Bangladesh high-level officials about the high quality of this multi-purpose bridge, which is now named after the Bangabandhu, the father of the nation. It was 1998. And since then, more Korean companies have involved in many big infrastructure projects. And now Samsung Construction is participating in the construction of the third terminal of the Dhaka International Airport. And also Samsung is participating in Megnagat multi-purpose power plant project. And Hyundai and POSCO, big Korean construction companies, are also involved in Matabari coal power plant programs. And Hala Construction is involved in the airport related programs. So this infrastructure is an area which both countries have very big potential of collaboration.
Korea is a really good friend of us. We always in the international platform we support them, and they also support us. So other than the RMG sector, we want their support to establish new investment. So they have the ability to invest in Bangladesh because they have a long experience. You see, last 35-40 years they came up a long way. They have changed their life. So that thing can also help us to guide us to have the same type of improvement, financial, economical. And they can invest in Bangladesh in a big way because they are very quite efficient in that line. So in heavy machineries, car producing, a lot of other sector, they can invest. So we are open, we invite them, and I really appreciate in the 1973 they recognized us a long way past. So they are really good friend of ours, and we believe we can progress if we work together.
From 100 years of Mujib to 50 years of Bangladesh, South Korea looks back at almost 100 years of cultural ties, 5 decades of friendship, close business cooperation, and joint peace and prosperity. We have no doubt our shared futures will hold as much promise and achievement as the road already walked together.